Welcome into the Room for Improvement podcast. My name is Sebastian Posey. Sitting to my right is Mr. Josh Zavadil. Josh, how's it going, man?
Doing well. How are you?
I am doing wonderful.
Good.
Well, if you guys enjoy comedy, then I don't really know why you're listening to us. But since you've stumbled on us today, you are in luck. We have with us Chris Davis and Martin Morrow. Chris Davis, all around Birmingham. He's in, I think, 35 different improv groups, maybe more. Mark, have you actually joined one since we started? So 36.
I'm waiting on one call. I'm waiting on a call. It's like I should be in 37 by tonight.
So it's safe to assume by the time this actually gets posted, you actually might be at an even 40.
Yes,
Awesome.
even 40.
And we got Martin Morrow, who is traveling around the country right now doing stand-up.
Yes.
And you will be at Iron City Thursday night, right?
That's right. Thursday at 8 p.m.
That is going to be a great show, I'm sure. So we have a stand-up. We have mainly improv. I know you do some stand-up. I've seen you do some stand-up. So, Josh, take it away, man. I know you had some questions for him. They have two different forms of comedy, which is two different forms of comedy that we've ever had in this show.
Right, because we're not funny people.
Not at all.
Yeah, Josh, take it away.
Take it away.
Dare you.
Okay, well, I know a lot of people that I have talked to, my fringe circle, are not really familiar with improv comedy. How did you get into that, Chris, first and foremost?
Well, my great-great-grandfather sat me down. No, I saw Whose Line Is It Anyway when it was the British version on Comedy Central way back in the day when Comedy Central was just starting. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I didn't know anything about improv. I've heard about the improv, like the Improv Comedy Club, but I only knew stand-up was at the improv, which always confused me as a kid. It was like, they're not improvising. And then I saw Whose Line Is It Anyway, and I got into improv that way. And somebody in town, Catherine Fitzer, she put up a flyer, wanted 10 to 12 people for an improv comedy group. And I saw the flyer on a Sunday, and auditions were Monday. And I thought, I probably wouldn't get in. But then by Monday, I thought, what the hey, So I went down there and got in the troupe, and that was in 2000. So we did our first show, and I have not looked back, foolishly enough.
I was thinking about this earlier. I was trying to figure out which style of comedy would be harder. I feel like improv, it's, you're living by just the seat of the moment, having things thrown at you. But then the more I was thinking about it, it's probably just as terrifying, Martin, to do stand-up where you actually have to come up with your entire routine and stand in front of a whole room of people telling jokes, hoping that these people laugh.
Well, I would say, in both forms, they're really trying to get people to laugh. And, I think in improv you have the wild card of people who might have a different view of what they want to do for that scene, and whereas in stand-up, you know what you're going to say, and it's just a matter of if the audience is going to go with you or not. So it's all sort of relative, because comedy is just such a thing of like what people want to laugh at or what they find funny. There's certain words that will trigger somebody to be like, okay, I'm not going to laugh at that, even if the material isn't necessarily generated to where it's supposed to be offensive or negative towards that topic. So
with that, obviously, like with stand-up, you have a routine put together. But do you ever really have nights where you're really feeding off the crowd and you got to go in a different direction and just basically start riffing?
Every night. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the most fun thing to do.
Yeah. Cause I think it's important to, sort of go off of their energy. And so sometimes, like, if you're watching another comic go up, like the host or whatnot, and they say something that may not have the audience on board, it's good to say, okay, well, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to go this different route. Or just anything of that nature. And sometimes it's just fun to riff with the crowd, like Chris was just saying. I think that's a big fun process, is just talking to them and interacting and making it more human.
And I know a lot of people, when they think of stand-up comedy, I don't think they necessarily understand that a lot of this stuff, there's a process that goes into this, coming up with your jokes and your routine. What's your, joke writing process? What's that look like?
For me, I don't know, we might have different processes, Chris, but I know for me, I'll walk around my neighborhood, or I'll be on the bus, or I'll just be on a plane. Something might happen, reading the news, reading something on social media, thinking about something from my past or an ex, something of that nature, and next thing you know, I'm in the shower and it just comes to me, and I'm like, I need to write that down, and I'll try it out at an open mic and then sort of develop it over time and see how it sticks.
I sacrifice a goat to Vulcan.
Okay.
That's where I get my inspiration.
Oh, wow.
And you didn't know that about
No,
me?
you never. I mean, I saw the goat carcasses in your apartment, but
I thought you would put two and two together.
I saw you're into some voodoo stuff, man.
Okay, well, I should be clear about my sacrifices.
That's gotta get expensive, man.
It's cheaper than you think. I don't pay for the goats.
Oh, 280 goats. I have a good deal.
280 goats is awesome.
You know, come to think of it, we actually have had stories where people were stealing goats. I think we might have just solved that story.
We may have.
Oh man, I just
Never heard of
sold myself down the
That's
river.
right, it's a
The
trap.
Chris Pacabra.
Is somebody gonna bust through the door? It's like he said the word. Go, move.
Yeah, this was all an elaborate ploy. Like, this isn't actually a real podcast or anything.
Man, this is an elaborate sting operation.
We had
Fine of
nothing better to do.
$300.
It actually costs more to do this than
That's the same fine an elected official would get for worse things. So I'm evening out. But I just anything I see something on TV. It could be the news or some kind of entertainment thing or some ridiculous, horrible show on television, or just anything. I walked down the street. I saw I walked down the street just like a block away from my house and saw a red Jeep, drizzled with honey, egged and smeared with dog poop on the door handles. And I just stood there and I just wondered about it. And I just wrote a joke. I just wrote a joke about it. It was a great experience. Not for that guy and his car, but
Bad breakup.
I know.
Yeah.
So I guess for both improv and stand-up comedy, you can't be afraid to fail, because when you're writing these jokes,
you can't. Yeah.
you're writing these jokes or you're improvising on the spot, especially like you said at an open mic, the first time you do it, you might bomb. I mean,
Yeah.
what's that like?
What's bombing like?
Yeah.
Hey man, I don't know.
Can I see your bare shin and something hard to wrap it on?
Yeah. It is, it's like, well, here's this idea I came up with, and typically now I'm at a point where I'll try something 3 times. If it doesn't work 3 times, I'm like, all right, I'll throw that away. But yeah, it's not fun to bomb, but it happens. It's humbling. So sometimes you need that.
I remember the first time I was very fortunate. Some nights were really good, some nights were so, some nights were all right, but I never bombed. I always got a few laughs, Sometimes it wasn't the greatest night. I didn't feel too good about it. But the one night I bombed, it was an open mic night when the Barking Kudo was still here. And everybody was eating it that night. I don't know, maybe we were all not funny or the audience just wasn't. The audience was a stony-faced group of 7 people I've ever seen at 10 o'clock at night on a Monday. And they were just arms crossed, just looking at us. It's like, and we just ate it. It was just terrible. And I went up, I did my bit. I had a couple of chuckles here and there. But basically, I felt this is my first time bombing. And also this night, the microphone stand was broken. So the guy who opened the mic out there, it was just a rickety old mic stand, and I was like fooling with it, and it kept falling apart, and the mic stand was falling down. So everybody was tussling with it. And the next comic who went after me, he started in his routine, and the mic stand started to flip over. And he said, "Chris, what did you do up here?" And I yelled from the back, "I bombed." And I got a big laugh. So my laugh came from the fact that I bombed.
So as a part of that, then, like, you just can't take it too seriously. You just
You
have to roll
can't.
with it.
You can't. I remember. I think I remember taking something seriously or almost personally once, and then getting over it really fast because I remember the people. I looked at the people in the audience and I go, "Okay, those 2 people, I should not take anything personal from at all. All right, because they were terrible people. They were terrible to everybody. They were talking, they were loud, they were drunk, and just ridiculous. It's like, I can't possibly take that personal. Didn't make any sense.
How do you so obviously getting ready for stand up is a little different, but like improv, you're there on the fly. So like, is there a way you kind of prepare for that when you go into a show, not really knowing where you're going to go with it, especially if say like in your group Ugly Baby, like I've seen 2 of your groups, and one of them you have more kind of a games kind of mentality, but then you have just pulling topics out of a hat. How do you really prepare for that when you don't really know where the show's going to go?
That, I guess it's just an innate thing. We have a history of acting ridiculous. We weren't necessarily class clowns, but or just been doing this all of our lives, basically. Like my buddy Jamel says, this is basically playing advanced Cowboys and Indians. We're doing the same things we've been doing since we were 7. Just now we're doing it on stage and getting paid upwards of $12 to do it. But it's a lot of fun, and for some shows we rehearse, like in ETC we rehearse some of the games sometimes, but it's stuff we've been doing forever. Sometimes we don't have to bother rehearsing too much. And for Ugly Baby, we get together and have a meeting like once a month, and we go through scenes, we go through exercises. So we do get together, and I know it sounds funny to rehearse improv, so we do rehearse, just techniques and just doing scenes and bantering around and just hanging out and being goofy.
And I guess those techniques and stuff, that's probably stuff that, for people familiar, I guess, with improv comedy, is stuff that maybe you would learn at Second City or UCB.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or the Groundlings. They have all kinds of techniques and classes that teach all kinds of stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And I would say, too, because I've been able to work with Ugly Baby and ETC as well, and a lot of it is just knowing your fellow player, just knowing them and knowing sort of like the things that they might do. And Chris is our voice guy, and he's got references just from everywhere. Donald Fagen, he's got an amazing impression of Donald Fagen. So I think we've kicked into a Michael McDonald and Steely Dan.
Yes,
combination, just like driving around and on stage. So
yes, do not let Michael McDonald be playing on the radio. And if Martin and I are in the car, we will just leave the car. It'll just be running. We will just leap out and just break into some Michael McDonald. It's gonna happen
with pantomime piano.
Yes, you got to pantomime the piano.
Have to.
If you don't, who will?
So is that something when you're rehearsing, you've been doing this for years, do you just start figuring out what areas you're really good at, like someone who's really good at impressions, someone who's great at kind of physical humor? Do you just kind of fall into that, or do you test everything?
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of it is trust. You got to trust the people who are on stage. Even if it's somebody you just met, you gotta, if you just met, you guys maybe rehearsed a little bit or did some kind of warm up, then you get on stage for the first time, like you're in a different group. Like when we went to Atlanta once and we just met this group and we went on stage with them like an hour later. It was a lot of fun. But when you're on stage with somebody like Martin, we'll do some very wild card stuff. I know something wild and crazy is going to happen. Yeah. And I know my buddy Doug, he's going to be very intellectual, but in a very ridiculous way, and end up cracking us up. Jamel and Mike are going to make awesome movie references that I could never begin. They have such a encyclopedia of movie knowledge that I can never jump on. And Nick, once he starts doing Alabama football references, I can't keep up.
Paul?
I do like the movie reference thing, because we have that problem where
it's awful. He
hasn't seen anything, and I've seen almost every. Like literally, I made 3 golden references to Double Team, the awesome Jean-Claude Van Damme, Dennis Rodman movie last week, and nothing. He's never even heard of it.
Nope.
You haven't seen the entire Dennis Rodman library of films?
Never.
Simon
all
Says.
2 of them.
At least a Shaquille O'Neal film?
Yes.
Okay.
But I think last week was the first time I realized that Dennis Rodman was in an actual film.
Yeah.
I know, too. It's like, I think, is it Simon Says, where he's like a secret agent, and Dane Cook, I think, is his first film role. He's his contact. He's all super skinny and goofy.
Dane Cook in this thing.
And, he's... I think Mickey Rourke shows up and he has a lion and he blows up in a car. I'm sorry for I should have said spoiler alert for
I was
those
gonna watch that this weekend.
headed down to the Red Box for their Dennis Rodman Film Festival.
You're not spoiling anything if it has those 3 names in it. If you give me Dennis Rodman, Dane Cook, and Mickey Rourke, I don't care.
At the time, I thought those movies were so ridiculous. And then you see Dennis Rodman hanging out with the ills in North Korea. Then you thought, well, maybe Simon Says wasn't such a bad idea.
So you're on tour right now.
Yeah, a little bit.
How's that? Like, how is that just to kind of go around from city to city, play different? Like, do you play almost every night, or how's your tour kind of set up?
Well, I'm based out of Chicago right now, and so like once a month I'll travel somewhere. So I was in New Orleans last week. I was in Mobile earlier this week. Then Birmingham here tomorrow. Portland not too long. I think like 2 months ago, and I'm in Madison, Wisconsin next month. So it's just a matter of going out there. I set up the shows myself, typically. I do have a manager and an agent, but they do like separate things, and I'll just a lot of it is from knowing people and doing shows with them, and a lot of it is just from sort of connecting, from people hearing about me and getting in that way. So it's cool to be able to do that and set stuff up and see, I wonder if this joke that I make in Chicago will work in, Toledo, Iowa, and it's kind of neat to see that work out.
You mentioned that, you guys weren't necessarily the class clowns growing up, but was there any specific moment in your life where, whether it was maybe a friend who was like, you're really funny, you should pursue trying to be funny for a living or something like that? Was there ever a particular moment for either of you where you were like, I really think I could be cut out for this?
I think with my really close friends when I was young, they would find me funny. They would find me funny and they would laugh. I was really shy. I wasn't the obnoxious man I am today. I was very quiet and shy. But my friends always laughed at what I said. Then one day, one of my friends had said, now a greater friend said, "Do you have to make jokes all the time?" And I was like 9, and it just shut me down. And then I thought, well, maybe I don't have to make jokes all the time. And then I would like ration it out. And then I would start being around people who were like constantly making jokes. You say, "Hi, how you doing?" And 30 minutes later, they had never let up from trying to be funny. It's like, oh, that's what my 9-year-old friend was talking about. I was annoying.
Like, here's a spinny hat. Like, no, Chris, we're at my grandma's funeral.
Hey, rubber chickens, anybody? Huh? Can't mourn without rubber chickens.
I think for me, it was in high school, and it was like my way of preventing from getting beaten up. Like there was one time I had I got sort of picked on a little bit when I was in band, which is like a weird
nerd.
But I would get picked on by the other band kids. So it's like,
what?
Well, yeah.
In nerd fighting? What is that?
I can identify with that.
Yeah. It's like the lowest common denominator. That's the bottom of the totem pole to get beat up by the band geeks.
That's sad. In my high school, the cool kids were in the band.
Yeah.
They were not. The football team was cool, but the cool kids were banned. If you played clarinet, you were something. I don't know. This is the only high school that I know of. But there were no band. It was Carver High.
Oh.
In Collegeville. It's like, if you were in the band, you were it. Football, sure, that's fine. Run a touchdown. But can you play the piccolo?
Oh, we have one dude who's like a lunch lady now. That's like,
He's a lunch lady now.
Yeah, so it was like a big decline all around. But I remember there was a day where these kids were sort of making fun of me, and I made fun of them back, and they got so offended. They were like, "We're gonna beat you up." And then this senior, because I was a freshman, and the senior was the one who like sort of saved me. And I became friends with the kids who were trying to beat me up like the next week just by joking around. And then I became sort of friends with all my bullies just throughout time. So it was a weird.
It's a weird defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Because if bullies make fun of you, and you get upset, it's awesome for them. But if they make fun of you, and you don't get upset, they are infuriated.
Yeah.
And then when you joke around, then it kind of helps out the situation sometimes.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened for me.
Yeah, I had to laugh my way through some fights.
Yeah. Put away the nunchucks, boys. No.
Well, I imagine there's no crowd that you can't handle if you made your bullies laugh.
Yeah, no, I would say yeah. Most crowds have been pretty cool.
Yeah. I played in a church in Decatur, Alabama. And I played in a biker bar in Montgomery, and I played like a club in Atlanta, Georgia, on a Saturday after the Georgia game when they won with a group of frat boys, and one of them was their 21st birthday.
Wow,
that was the toughest thing I ever did.
I do a lot of bachelorette parties, and I've had
comedy.
No, you know me.
Gotta get paid.
I still think my favorite, like, sort of weird why am I here was I got paid to do a like an Indian birthday party in the back of an Italian restaurant.
Oh my God! Why wasn't I there for that? Was that in Chicago?
No, that was in Chicago. Yeah.
Oh man,
we had to drive out to the
flown up
suburbs.
for that.
Yeah, we had to drive to the suburbs of Chicago, and they paid us to. There's like a bunch of little kids running around, and it was just like crowd work city, just like. So you're 12, you got a girlfriend? Like, well, actually, they can't have girlfriends till they're 18. Oh, okay, cool, learning a lot. So it became Just me asking questions about Indian culture.
Rajni Patel, finish your spaghetti and lasagna.
But then
This is not at all weird.
But then if you're not even telling jokes, you're just taking notes. Like, oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Is there a city though so you've been to a lot of places? Is there like a city you just always love going to, just because the crowd and the energy is always great there?
Atlanta is one. One place I've only been there once, but I loved it, was Austin. Philly was also a really cool spot, and LA was amazing. Like doing the Laugh Factory out there was really cool. So I'd say probably those would be my top 4. But yeah. I know you asked for one. I can't.
No,
Martin's been playing some really cool stand-up dates for the last couple of years. We've had some really good dates.
Yeah. Portland too. I just named every city. I think. New Orleans, Birmingham.
I enjoy everywhere.
Yeah.
On the improv side, I've seen a few of your shows, so I've seen just a complete random bit of what people can throw at you. Are there times where you get these suggestions where you know you have to use them and you're just like, what? Like, what am I going to do with this?
Yes. And that's the thing. We try to take the first thing that comes to us, that somebody yells out. Like, give me a suggestion for a vegetable or whatever. And we try to take the very first thing that comes out. And sometimes people will yell out things that are inappropriate for the venue and the show. Like, sometimes we do family-friendly stuff. And I guess the person in the audience didn't see the poster and just will shout out the most outlandish things. And sometimes we'll take them. Sometimes we'll take stuff and we'll twist it around. We'll do it, laterally instead of literally, and make it funny. And the crowd really goes for that. I think when you do something, it's like, oh, I thought they were going to do this, but they did that. Oh, I see what they did. So,
are you guys, having been in, I guess, comedy, do you have fans? Are there comedians you look up to?
Yeah, there's a lot of comics I look up to.
I look up to Chris.
Thanks, Martin. I look up to you to a lesser extent.
No, I don't think that's how that works.
What? Huh? I'm a big fan of Martin. I'm not just saying that because I'm 3 feet away from you in the same room. But no, I love his comedy and his improv. When he did improv, oh, that reminds me. One of the most fun times on stage, we did a show. I forget what the show. I don't know. It was like an election show. We were like improvising these election characters or something. We're doing improv, and the show was about to end. Actually, we were about to take our curtain call, like the show. Thank you and good night, blah blah blah. And I think Martin was a professional wrestler. I think his character, and he whispered to me, "I'm going to hit you on the back with a chair." And I said, "That'll be awesome." So we were on stage, and everybody was taking their bows. And as we were taking their bows, he comes up behind me with a metal folding chair and, like, smacks me on the back, and I go down to the ground. And the crowd, like, freaks out. But half of the cast is already backstage and go, what happened? What happened? It's like, he hit me with a chair. It was awesome. I forgot the question. What was the question?
Comedians you look up to.
I love Paul F. Tompkins.
Yes.
He is one of my favorites and very well dressed. Louis C.K., of course. I heard Dave Chappelle is going on a few tours. I would love to see Dave Chappelle do that. And yeah, so those are David Tell and Eugene Merman is one of my new favorites, at least the last few years. He's great too.
For me, Baron Vaughn, Eric Andre, Hannibal Buress, Lavelle Crawford, Patrice O'Neill. This guy Junior Stopka, who's just fearless. Definitely look him up. This girl Megan Gailey is really funny.
Yeah, she's cool.
Yeah. Ton of people I like. Yeah, Louis C.K. as well, Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle.
Do you always like with that? Do you always kind of like with artists, with musicians? They always try to find new music to follow. Do you kind of do the same with comedy? Like find the new underground comedians, or are you always just watching comedy shows when you're not yourselves doing comedy shows?
Yeah, I love watching shows. When I go out of town, even if I can't perform somewhere, I always make a point. It's like either I have to perform somewhere or I have to go see a comedy show and just check it out and just see who's out there. Because there's some new people. I saw a guy last night in Birmingham at the Tuesday night open mic that was just great. It's like, oh, this guy's really good. He's going to be very good. You know, and after seeing like comedian after comedian after comedian, you see somebody and it's just real fresh and it's just amazing. And you thought, wow, this guy's got real potential. He's very funny. He's very different. But I love whenever I go somewhere, I just like to go see comedy. Comedians should see comedy. I think some comedians don't see comedy. It's like some musicians, like the last thing they want to do is go hear music. Sometimes it's a distraction from their music, and sometimes it's like after playing music all the time, they don't want to mess around with another musician.
Yeah, I try to watch a lot of shows too because I think it's important. One, to make sure you're not like doing a bit that's too close to anyone else, and
exactly.
But two, just also, you get out there and you hear a different voice, or you hear how someone who may have been doing it longer, how they deliver something. Or even last night at the open mic, I went and I watched some of the guys, and Chris thought it was kind of funny how I was like, ugh, to some of the Chris like, oh.
I walked past him with ugh. It's like, are you a Peanuts character? Is Peppermint Patty cheating off your homework?
Yeah.
So you kind of mentioned the Birmingham, seeing more shows in Birmingham. You've obviously done a lot of stuff here in Birmingham. Can you just talk about it seems like the last few years there's been kind of this uprising, if you will, of just comedy talent coming from Birmingham. Have you seen that?
Yeah. We're not all just American Idol exports now. We're some good comedians are coming from here. Roy Wood Jr.
Yeah, he's on Sullivan.
He was. He's doing great. He's on a TV show now, and he was on Last Comic Standing. Ricky Smiley has a show and TV stuff, and other producing things. And
Matt Davis.
Matt Davis is doing great. Matt Davis, if he's not in Canada, he's in Iraq. He's doing great right now.
Well, Josh is being a meanie and telling us that we need to wrap this show.
Don't be a
up.
meanie, Josh.
He's being very mean.
It's in my nature, sorry.
Has
it been 3 hours already?
It has been.
Oh, wow.
Before we go, though, usually this is the part of our show where we plug ourselves, but no one cares about us. We got you guys here. How can anyone find you guys on any sort of interweb thingy?
Tell the folks where they can find you, Martin.
You can find me on Twitter at Martin M. Morrow. That's Morrow, or like my Facebook page, Martin Morrow Comedy, and also have a website coming out soon.
And I'm on Twitter as well, Chris Oz Davis. That's ChrisOzDavis. That's my fake middle name. I don't have a real middle name. We couldn't afford them when I was young. Chris Oz Davis, that's my Twitter handle. That's where you'll find my Twitterings. Also on Facebook, Fresh Ground Comics, ETC Improv, and Ugly Baby Improv, all on Facebook.
That's actually one of the reasons why we had to kind of wrap the show up a little bit, because we knew when you were coming down to your plugs, it was going to be a good bit of stuff to throw out there.
Why be good at one thing? We can be mediocre at four.
I do have a question about Twitter, though. Do you ever workshop jokes on Twitter?
Rarely, because usually what works online does not work on stage. Every now and then there's a joke I'm like, this might work out, and so it's like once in a blue moon where something on Twitter can work on stage.
Well, yeah, I'll put a one-liner or some kind of premise on Twitter and or Facebook, and I might use it later in the routine.
Yeah.
Well, since they can't find your jokes on Twitter, where can they see you, particularly Thursday night somewhere in the city of Birmingham?
Yeah, Thursday night. That's the 3rd, July 3rd, 8 o'clock, Iron City. So please come out. Chris is actually going to be hosting the show.
Yes.
It's called a Night of Comedy with Martin Morrow. Get your tickets at ironcitybham.com.
Michael McCall, Tolly Jones, and from Atlanta, Olivia Cathcart. It's going to be a stellar night of comedy.
Indeed.
You'll be able to find a link to that on our website, wiet.com.
That is correct, Josh. And for Josh, for the amazing Chris Davis, the awesome Martin Morrow, I am Sebastian Posey. This has been the show. Join us next time for more Room for Improvement.